listening to the Zach Gelb Show on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey.
Welcome back, Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920 The Jersey. 609-919-9200 is the number if you want to call and hang with us. Brand new assistant coach of Princeton basketball, baby. Kerry Kittles, who played for the Nets, also has spent a few years in L.A., went to Villanova, is joining us right now in the studio, the Princeton Orthopedic Associate Studios. Coach Kittles now. I got to call you Coach Kittles. How are you?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
Is that at all odd for you now that after playing for so many years, it's now Coach Kittles?
It's a little bit odd, yeah. I think mostly because it's a new situation for me. It's a new experience for me. So, yeah, I'm used to being a player all those years, and now I'm on the other side, going to teach the game to young kids.
When did you know that you wanted to be a coach?
That's a good question. I think it was a while ago. I've always had a sense of the game and thought the game a different way as a player, and always, whenever I had younger players on my team, I always tried to mentor them and teach them what I knew. And just so it just happened. I mean, you start giving lessons and working with kids, and sooner or later you start hearing yourself talk about the game, and you realize, oh, wow, there's a lot of information out there, and I'm doing a pretty good job of conveying it. So it was a matter of time before I formalized it and make it into a career.
So how did this job come about? How did Kerry Kittles end up at Princeton?
Well, I came to a couple of games a few years ago, and I met one of the managers on the basketball team, and he and I became good friends. And when I heard about the position being open, we talked quite a bit about it. And he reached out to Coach Mitch and on my behalf, and Coach Mitch reached out to me, and then we started talking, and we really hit it off. And so it just worked out where we just saw things in common, and he's looking for someone like me. I'm looking for an experience like this, learning from a guy like him who's been around the game for a while in a coaching side, and it's a great university, and just checked all the boxes. So that's kind of why I'm here.
Hey, he's a really good coach too, and he has a good program as well. What do you like about this team after being on the short time so far, maybe interacting with some of these kids?
Yeah, well, obviously, it's a good situation coming in as a new assistant to a Ivy League favorite team where there's a lot of upperclassmen on the team and a lot of experience on this team. So that's always a good thing. But also just coming in with Coach Mitch and his staff and learning how they do things. I mean, he's a Pete Carroll disciple, so he has all those typical Princeton fundamentals that I learned from my assistant coach in the NBA, Eddie Jordan, for 3 years. So that'll really translate into helping these kids understand from a different perspective the same principles, but just applying them maybe a little bit differently. So in that regard, I think it was a win-win for both of us. I've always valued education in my career when I was at Villanova, and when I was done playing basketball, I went back and got my master's. So I do understand the importance here at Princeton that they do emphasize with education, academics, and that side of things. But also just coming to a situation where basketball is important here. It's 22 Ivy League championships. So I mean, they expect to win and expect to compete at the highest level, and that's kind of what drew me here.
And as the average person may not know the history of Princeton basketball, but it's a pretty impressive one. Bill Bradley, Pete Carroll, like you mentioned, John Thompson, who now coaches at Georgetown, played for Princeton. And you take a look, really, the program that you played your college basketball out, Villanova, there's a big family atmosphere. You hear all those legendary stories about Rolly Massimino going into the locker room up against UNC and telling his guys, if you would have played this way, I would have just eaten a big bowl of pasta with white clam sauce. The tradition and the fun stories with the Steve Lapis. You see that family atmosphere with the Jay Wright now. So you understand that family atmosphere.
Correct.
And that rich tradition that a program has. How do you get your kids to understand the tradition of a Princeton basketball?
Well, honestly, a lot of it comes from the coaching staff somewhat, but also just the former players being around. I think what you mentioned there, Villanova and Coach Massimino being his age and, just recently not being in great health, but somehow making it out to the Final Four and being around and showing his face. Those opportunities where former players do have a chance of, they have their family life going on in their careers, but just taking the time to come back around the players and just spend quality time around the kids and tell them about their experience playing at Princeton, what it was like, going into some of those places at Palestra and playing and in other places. It has an impact on kids and their perspective and their outlook on what they're currently doing. Sometimes when you're in the moment and you're so focused on trying to become better as a team and individually, individually as well, you kind of don't really look at the big picture, which is, the past and the present and the future of Princeton basketball. And if you align those three things together, it helps these kids being a little bit more engaged in what they're doing and maybe have a little bit more commitment to what they're doing as well.
I remember when I talked with Aaron McKee, who was in a similar situation like you, and he had a background being an assistant coach in the NBA, but a guy that was a former NBA player, then going to a college. And for Aaron, it was Temple, where he played his basketball out. Now, obviously, you didn't play your college basketball at Princeton, but the big part about this job is the recruiting. Yes, you're teaching kids a lot. Yes, you're trying to work on their games, but you got to get the right kid that fits the mold of a Princeton program. Give me your recruiting pitch. Let's say I'm Zach Gelb. I'm an erudite kid. I want to come to Princeton. How do you recruit me?
Well, obviously, you look at what Princeton stands for academically. They don't cut any corners. It's a school that's built all about excellence. From the top leaders on down, you're going to get challenged in many ways at Princeton. And in athletics, and particularly in basketball, I think having a guy like Coach Mitch, who's been there as a player and has walked and had those shoes laced up for 4 years under Coach Carril, he understands the importance of it. And so, having that message from him, and being around guys like Brett McConnell, who's been around for a while here in college basketball here in Princeton, and learning from those guys, I think, and having my perspective. I mean, I played at the college level. I was recruited. I understand what it's like being recruited. I played at the Division I at the highest level, and been around great coaches in my career. There's a lot to add, a lot of value to add there. So, the teaching part is fun. The recruiting part is going to be great, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Do you have dreams of one day being a head coach?
Who knows? I said the same thing, when I went to Villanova. Coming from New Orleans, I had no idea at the time, no aspirations whatsoever of going to the NBA. I was just going to college to get my degree, to compete hard in basketball and see wherever it goes. But just, focused on the day-to-day process of just becoming better. And as a coach, that's pretty much will be my same approach, is to really just focus on being a great coach, spending a lot of time in the office, watching tape, learning from everyone else around the staff, and just being the best coach I can be for the moment, and then wherever it happens in the future just happens.
See, now you caught my attention because you said New Orleans, and I'm a big guy. I love New Orleans food. When I was talking with Odell Beckham Jr. a few weeks ago, we started getting on a conversation about New Orleans food. Man, there's nothing like New Orleans food. It's tough to describe. You have to go down there, but that's some of the best food I've ever had.
It is. Unfortunately, like for a guy like me who grew up there, and there are so many friends and family that when I go home, everyone's asking me, like, where do you go to eat in New Orleans? And I'm like, I go to my friends' houses and eat the best meals. Not go to restaurants. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's a city that's known for music, and it's known for having a good time. I mean, you're gonna have some good meals there, and watch your calories when you're there.
For sure, right? If you're on a diet, you're not going to Mardi Gras
not at all,
or New Orleans and hanging out on Bourbon Street. As Kerry Kittles joins us, the new assistant coach at Princeton, going to do a tremendous job there at that fine institution. Last night was draft night, 1996. You were the 8th overall pick. What do you remember about being drafted?
Just the anxiety of figuring out where you're going to go. I mean, there's 30 NBA teams, and I worked out for probably, I don't know, give or take half of the teams at the time, and I knew I was going to be somewhere in the lottery, but you really don't know at that time where you're going to land, where you're going to wind up. And I actually had my best workout when I was, before the draft for the LA Clippers, and I'm thinking, oh gosh, they're going to draft me in LA. I'm going to play for the Clippers. But fortunately, I was able to stay close by New Jersey here, and Calipari was there. He was a great coach who came in together and just learning the NBA routine, what it was like. I had awesome veterans my first year at Kendall Gill and Jason Williams and Kevin Edwards and stuff like that. So it's a great experience for me. New Jersey, New York area, it's a great area to play basketball. They're passionate fans about the sport. And as a young kid that's just ambitious and just can't wait to see how I'm going to carve out my niche as a professional, it was just a lot of fun, a lot of excitement.
There's always critics, no matter what year. People are going to say, oh, Kerry Kittles going to be the next great thing, or they're going to say, oh, Kerry Kittles will be a bust. And now it's completely different because you have Twitter and everyone is able to voice their opinions. As a player back then when you had to go through it, how did you deal with what people were saying negatively about your game of basketball at that time?
just don't read the papers. don't listen to sports radio. Honestly,
well, now you better be listening to sports radio, right?
Yeah. Now it's always on in my car. But yeah, you're right. I think it's you put your head down. Really, you can just focus on yourself. I mean, there's always going to be outside distractions. Whether it's people now with the social media. Even back when I played, it was always talks about players and what they can or cannot do. But as a player, really, you just focus on getting better. You know what you have to do. I mean, coaches are pretty straightforward with where you need to improve. They don't shy away from being bold about that. So get in the gym, get in the lab, and just work at it and do the best you can.
Sixers got the number 1 pick. They take Ben Simmons, and everyone's sitting there. And Aaron McKee was on the show yesterday, and he says you see a lot of Magic Johnson in a player like a Ben Simmons because he could play all the positions on the court. You hear the comparisons to a LeBron James. If you could talk to Ben Simmons, who's supposed to be this next star in Philadelphia, just what advice would you give to him about playing the game of basketball?
Just work at it. I think maybe it was John Sally said it to him this morning on the radio. It was just like, hey, put your phone down, the social media down at times, and just focus on doing what got you where you're at now. And I think that's the most important thing. Sometimes young kids, they have a hard time tuning out the distractions. I think he has a big upside. I've watched a couple of his games. He's, everyone's been saying, he's got great size, great mobility. The game is trending now towards guys who are in that 6'7" to 6'9", 6'10" range, who can, just play multiple positions and just play all over the court rather than close to the basket. So, left-handed players are generally good shooters, and, we haven't seen much of his outside shot. But if that improves over his career and he keeps a steady head and he just be a competitor. I think in Philadelphia, the fans are very passionate about sports, not just hoops in general, but they're just passionate fans. So if he's competitive and he works at his game, there's no reason why he shouldn't improve and become a great player in the league.
You hear a lot about that with his shot. That was made something that was such a big thing, that he doesn't have the best of shot.
He didn't have to shoot in college. He can just put the ball on the floor and get right to the hoop. Why take a jump shot?
How do you improve your shot in the NBA? Because that's the highest level of basketball.
It's reps. Really it is. I mean, the NBA now with technology, they're able to really zero in on the key fundamentals, and all the teams are staffed like crazy with passing the ball to you whenever you want, morning, noon, and night. So who have all the ample enough time in the world to get in there and get better at it and get his reps up, and I'm sure he'll develop. I mean, look at what Blake Griffin did in LA for the Clippers. I mean, he came in as an athlete who was just known to slash to the basket and dunk the ball, and now he's really developed his overall game. Same with Draymond Green. He couldn't shoot the ball at first. Now he's making 5 threes in Game 7 of the finals. So it can happen.
So there was a lot of trade rumors last night with the Sixers, and some people thought that there was going to be a trade with the Celtics, and you heard Okafor's name being talked about. You heard Noel's name being talked about. You have a player's perspective. You are the ultimate professional in the NBA. How do you walk back in that locker room? Is it at all awkward when you walk back in that locker room after your name's been flirted around so many outlets?
No. I think that's a big misconception, is that it bothers players. I mean, are there some players who are sensitive to all the chit chatter that goes on with GMs and sometimes agents making public comments and their names being tossed around in the media. But generally speaking, players understand the business side of it. You're in the locker room for 2 months. You see a lot of transactions. From training camp, guys coming in and out. Trade deadline. There's talks and there's movement. So players understand that, and veteran players are pretty good at explaining to younger kids or younger players that, hey, listen, this is a business. From day one, approach it that way. Understand now you are a professional. You are not a college player, or back when I was playing, it was some high school kids as well. So he'll understand that. I mean, everyone understands it, and it's part of the business. So you put your head down, like I said before, and focus on basketball.
At one time, you were a young basketball player, trying to prove to the league who you were, who is Kerry Kittles. What was the best piece of advice that you got when you were a rookie?
The best piece of advice, honestly, it should just kind of stay disciplined. Time management skills are huge, as any professional would tell you. It doesn't matter if you're a basketball player or not. What you do with your time, especially when you're away from your job, is very important. So Just learning to take care of your body is important. I mean, and when I played early on, it was a lot of heavy practices where in between games, coaches were grinding us, and we were competing a lot during those off days. And so you had to really take care of your body, whether it was just resting and icing and massaging and all that stuff and stretching, which is important if you want to be able to go out there on the court and perform. So I think time management skills is probably the best thing. Just staying disciplined, having a routine is important. You know, you're traveling on the road, and get to the games early, get your shots up, and just be consistent. That kind of just helps your performance, stay consistent where you don't really have lulls and ups and downs, and be streaky as a player.
Kerry Kittles is here with us at Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920, The Jersey, coming to you live from the Princeton Orthopedic Associates studios. So the best basketball game that I saw this year was the national championship game. And awesome. I know it brings a big smile to your face. It was awesome. Take me through your reaction when you have the whole mop situation going with Oshefu, then Arch passes it off to Chris Jenkins, and then boom, Major Onions, Villanova wins the ship.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I've been around sports for a long time, and 75,000 people watching that game, and it was interesting because the fans around me, when you're a player, you're just in the moment. You're not really thinking about stuff. You're not really nervous. I mean, you have a little bit of butterflies before the game begins, but that's about it as a player. But when you're sitting in the stands now as a fan, and you're around other fans, and you hear all the talk about, they're so anxious and nervous, and they're like sweating, and they have all these superstitions, and I'm like, relax. I'm telling the folks around me, in the first half, Carolina is making all these three-pointers, and I look at the basket, and I kind of notice, I'm like, that's a shooter's rim over there, and the folks around me looked at me like, what do you mean a shooter's rim? I'm like, it's just the way the basket looks. It just looks like a shooter's basket. I'm like, so the second half, here's what's going to happen. They're going to miss all these three-pointers, and we're going to make a lot of shots when we get to that basket. And sure enough, it just started to unfold that way, just like randomly, I guess. But it was a great game. It was back and forth. Villanova just hung in there, and they battled all season long. It wasn't anything that they hadn't been used to doing. So to finish the way they finished, in that moment, and to be there and watch that basket go in, it was just. I mean, I can't. It was very surreal. It was very surreal.
And Arch and Oshefu didn't get drafted, but the Arch signed on with the Spurs and Oshefu with the Wizards. But I take a look back at that game, and the one thing that I'm still shocked about was how Jay Wright stayed so cool, calm, and collective. That shot went up, he mouthed bang, and then the next thing you know, it was just a mutual respect for the man on the other side in Roy Williams, and there wasn't much celebration from the coach and Jay Wright, although clearly he enjoyed the moment.
Yeah, he did. I think he did. I mean, some people just kind of bottled it all up, and I think he, after hearing him talk about it afterwards, he was pretty confident that they had, a pretty good chance. I mean, actually, he just said they're going to live with the results, right? I mean, they've been there. They were prepared. Marcus Page makes an unbelievable shot, and Coach Wright just said, listen, we did everything that we could, and whatever happens, the result happens. We just gave our best effort, and when they went in, he was just like, all right, I kind of knew it was going to go in. And they practiced that shot so many times, and they were used to it. And the guy's a great shooter, and it's just an amazing accomplishment.
We're spending a few more minutes with Kerry Kittles, who's kind enough to grace us with his presence on the Zach Gelb Show in the studio right now in Princeton, New Jersey. Let's get to the NBA Finals. LeBron James has the block. Now they're calling it LeBlock, and Cleveland went through all those years of suffering, the drive, the fumble, the shot, and then they finally get that championship. How the heck did LeBron James make that block? Because that was unreal watching that.
I mean, he's done it his whole career, right? I mean, everyone talks about his greatness and when he has the ball on the offensive end and how dominant he can be at times, when he's very aggressive. But what we fail to really pay attention to is how he just plays both ends of the court. I think that's kind of what separates the great players over time in the NBA. I mean, there's been guys who have done both, who have excelled at both. Jordan comes to mind, Akeem Olajuwon comes to mind. And LeBron he's all out effort. He doesn't quit, and he's chased plenty of guys down, and the only other block I can remember that was like that, I think, was Tayshaun Prince blocking Reggie Miller years ago.
The Pistons, yeah.
Yeah, that was a similar play there on the ball. But, LeBron's amazing. I mean, think about how often they've scouted him and tried to take away his strengths, and somehow he just still finds a way of just dominating a game at that level. It's just he's a great one. He's going to go down as one of the greatest players to ever play, if not already in that conversation.
And that series really changed when the Warriors were up 3-1, and then Draymond Green gets suspended. Klay Thompson starts to talk some smack. If you're a Warriors player, how do you just move on from that? Because you were so close. It was 73 wins. You just needed one more win in that season, and people would have said, wow, this is really the greatest team of all time.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for Golden State. I mean, Bogut goes down. That was a huge piece for them. I mean, the interior presence of a big guy. I mean, everyone says it's a small ball league, and rightfully so. Many teams are trying to play that way. But Bogut goes down. It hurts their interior presence. They really don't have anything for LeBron as he's slashing to the basket. And Draymond Green gets suspended, and he misses a pivotal game for them. So, I mean, that's sports, right? I mean, this is why we watch the games. This is what makes it fun for us as fans. Now I'm a fan, I can say that, and that's how it is. Iguodala, now he's been really good guarding LeBron in the past and kind of limiting him and slowing him down. He has back issues, and now he's struggling with that. And so it's just multiple things that kind of go wrong all at the same time for Golden State, and it just kind of messes up their rhythm. And it's just I don't know. Great series to watch, though. I mean, 7 games, which is kind of what you wanted to watch as a fan.
I grew up as a Net fan, so this is such a thrill to have you in the studio. And then you look back at some of those players like Jason Kidd, Martin, Keith Van Horn, just
RJ.
some of those players. Richard Jefferson, a guy that won the final. By the way, are you on Snapchat?
No, I'm not.
Man, you've been missing some good Richard Jefferson Snapchats.
Oh, yeah.
I follow him. He has J.R. Smith with the shirt off everywhere, celebration parties and all that stuff. But what was that like for you to see one of your teammates who's still in the league, still playing at a good level, putting a lot of minutes on there, such a well-conditioned athlete like a Richard Jefferson win a championship?
That's great. I mean, I went to the game this year when they played at Brooklyn, and we chatted before the game and caught up. I hadn't talked to him in years, and I'm happy for him that he's still playing. He told me at the time he's going to probably play a couple more years, and then now he finds himself in a championship series again. So he hadn't been there in I don't know how many years. So it was fun for him. Also, the other guy I had was Sean Livingston. My last year with the LA Clippers, he was a rookie. So two of my younger kids, I call them kids now, but two of my younger guys are still out there competing and playing. It's fun to watch their success.
And growing up, there was nothing like it seeing a Nets game when you guys were in the finals and you had all the lights go on.
I wish we were in Brooklyn, though. I mean, the Meadowlands was not a great place to play.
No, it wasn't. It was a dump, but it was our dump.
I know.
You went there and you felt so much pride with that team, and then all of a sudden you heard the PA announcer with the starting lineups go 6'4" guard from Cal, and then there was that dramatic pause for 2 seconds. Then he would scream, "Jason Kidd!"
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Jason Kidd was my favorite basketball player growing up.
Amazing.
Then he becomes the head coach of the Brooklyn Nets. I was at that press conference. I was all jacked up. I'm like, J Kidd's going to be the guy that brings the Nets back to their glory days. And then he leaves after 1 year.
Yeah.
And, it's tough for me now to like one of my all-time favorite players. It's tough for me to like him now because he screwed up when he was the coach of the Nets. What's your relationship like with J Kidd now?
It's we talk from time to time, but not too much. I think that's what happens with pro sports. I mean, everyone just kind of goes back to their normal lives, wherever they live, wherever they find their residence, they go back. But I mean, I follow them, I watch them from afar, and I sometimes I just go online and read his comments over in the Milwaukee papers and stuff. So it's interesting. I mean, that's how it is. He comes back to the Nets, and like you say, you think that he's going to turn the whole thing around, and it's only there for 1 year. So it's hard. I mean, the business side of pro sports is not what everyone thinks it is, and there's so many different layers that are intertwined, and things just takes its twists and turns, and you can't always predict what's going to happen. But he did well last year with Milwaukee, and they struggled this year. Yeah, he's learning as a coach. Everyone says he's doing really, really well. Rod Thorne is now on board with him in his back pocket over there in Milwaukee, helping him out. So I follow them. I'm happy for his success.
Hey, you got to make me a promise here. You're going to have a really good career at Princeton, being assistant coach. When you're
absolutely.
The head coach of the Nets, you better not leave me. You better not leave me, Kerry. If you leave me, I like you. I don't want to dislike you,
No. What are they doing? I have no idea what management is doing with the Nets. I mean,
Billy King screwed the whole thing up.
I I'll plead the fifth on that.
Right. Kerry Kittles is here with us, wrapping up with him right now. Let's get to Derrick Rose. Derrick Rose is going to be a member of the Knicks. Your thoughts when Derrick Rose got traded to the Knicks?
I think it's a win-win for the Knicks. Really, Derrick Rose, and people are just like writing them off. But we've seen over our years watching pro athletes when they're in their contract years, especially guys like him who enjoy the spotlight, they enjoy the challenge, they don't mind all the media attention, and they can still go out and perform. And the last year of his deal and getting traded, new teams, it's always exciting. Playing with Melo, so. Look for an exciting year from him. I think it was a good move for the Knicks, and we'll see what else they have in store the rest of the summer.
Before we let you go, as we're talking to Kerry Kittles, Princeton, we're expecting big things out of them this year. I have to ask you this. What do you miss most about playing the game of basketball?
I think all former players will tell you just the camaraderie in the locker room is probably the most important thing, and the competitiveness. I mean, when you're around guys so much and you develop good friendships and good bonds and trust when you're on the court, playing and just, being together out there and competing is probably the hardest thing for former players to get used to once they hang them up. But for me, yeah, that was probably it. Just the competitiveness of having games and being out there on the court when everything matters and, putting everything you've worked hard for out there on the line and giving all you have for the team is something I miss. So
last one before we let you run. Tell me why fans should come out and see this Princeton basketball team this year. What are you guys going to offer on the court?
Like I said before, a lot of experienced team coming back. It's Coach Mitch has taken the Princeton offense and just gave it a whole modern twist now. He's scoring 79, 80 points a game, shooting a lot of three-pointers, and good group of young kids coming in, freshmen from last year, sophomores. So great team to watch. We're favorites in the Ivy, so come out and support us.
No doubt about that.
Go Tigers.
Go Tigers, baby. We'll be watching it. Kerry Kittles, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.